Welcome back, guys. So before diving into layers, rendering in layers, and showing you further, how we can control the lights and everything inside Photoshop, I'm gonna just go back, double tap a little bit in, and just show you just how versatile this lights it is, because it's not just for, like right now, we are, rendering the entire set. We're showing a little bit of Stonemason's The Ministry, and we're also showing full size character, right? And it's not just about those kind of renders, because, and like I said, the low camera here enables you to get away with the fact that the backlight illuminates the floor so much, right? And right now we kind of have a shadow on her feet also from here, right? And that's by the way how you can design and fine-tune. See, now we can pinpoint exactly what is receiving light and what's receiving shade. And now she receives more shadow. Sorry, light overall. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, the low camera removes a little bit of the light. And the bit higher camera, now you have more issues with that the floor receives so much lighting. Now, one thing you can do to obstruct that light is to have a low camera, right? Another thing is to have objects obviously in front of the backlight. So the more objects you have, like in this case the car and the guy here, then there's less of the floor we can see, right? Kind of like a no-brainer. Another thing you can do is to use poses that take out more space. Like in this case, she's kind of filling out the entire frame, so the lighting doesn't hit so much on the floor, it hits more on her. And obviously in this case also have water surface, right? But here's the thing. It's not just about, getting cool set and all that, because you can use this for images like this now. Okay, so this is a more zoomed in version. Let's just crop her. Let's just crop her feet. Sorry, the thighs a little bit differently. So I'm just zooming in a little bit. Here you have just a zoom in image with the frontal lighting, the back lighting on her, and also the background lighting. And the beautiful thing about this is that it works for every kind of image, whether it's a full image like I just showed you, or it's a half image, or it's a zoomed in, or just a face. It works for any type of image. So that's why I think this light set is one of the coolest inventions ever. And like I said, it's a evolution out of my 7-point light setup, which I designed back in 2010 when I released Lightmaster. And then throughout the last 9 years, I've been teaching a lot more about lighting to thousands of people around the world, right? And this just became more and more and more streamlined towards a more simplified process. Now here's a cool thing. As you remove the ground, pay attention. Now you can go ahead to the backlight, go back to it, and increase its intensity tenfold, and really get an extremely dramatic effect from it. What happens is that you kind of, well, that was a little bit too much. You kind of, enhance the lighting from behind. You exaggerate all the lines here, the silhouette lines and all that. You exaggerate what happens to the set, and you also exaggerate what happens with the backlight once it hits the set. It starts to bounce around. If you pay close attention to what happens to her, if I lower this now to what we just had a moment ago, you can see it doesn't, the set, well, receives a little bit of light, but she's not affected by it. And now if we really punch it hard now, what happens is that the backlight starts to bounce back at her. See the cool thing? So, and here's the thing. When I designed this 3-point X light system, I wanted things to kind of cover together. How could I simplify everything I listed before, like the back, the bouncing, the overall, and all that? And here's how: by giving the light, you know, the lights multiple functions. So the front and key become one, okay, and also much simpler to combine and set up, right? The background obviously is the background, but the backlight also becomes the bounce light. As you can see, it bounces off the set right back at your character and fills in the blanks from below, from the side, and all that. So this is just beautiful. And another thing you want to do is on the camera, you want to use, obviously turn off any headlamps, but you want to use depth of field. Then I always suggest you do auxiliary viewport and just use maybe, let's say we use hidden line. And here from the side, we can see exactly, see this red line over here? That's where that happens, right? Focal distance. There we go. So I can set it on her just right before her face starts. That's when you want to put it. Somewhere around here. And see, it just looks gorgeous. And it's the same light setup, guys. I didn't touch the lights besides the intensity of the backlight. So when you don't see the ground, you can punch the backlight a lot more, or if you have it more narrow and all that. And in this example here with the car, it's pretty intense. As you can see, it's very intense, right? But it survives because the ground is also very dark, and I have a lot of stuff in the way of the light. So it's not just the ground receiving light, it's multiple objects. All right, so, and what we can do with this now, we can also go one step further. We can zoom in more and create that type of render. So this now becomes a portrait style render, right? It's even more closer. And it just looks stunning. So what we can do here real quick is just, let's see if I have both cards enabled. I do. We can just turn on the denoiser so that it goes a little bit faster on previewing. And often when you zoom in that much, you can just increase this value here on f-stop to get a little bit less blurry background. Often it becomes very, you know, intense as you zoom in, so you can just increase that value to decrease just how much you have of that. And see, beautiful lighting again. So the three lights, the X, is my favorite way of lighting. I have to tell you, it's derived from 15 years of, you know, using Daya Studio. It's my favorite way of lighting because it's just so straightforward. Something really soft straight from behind, from the front, something very harsh from behind, and back on lighting. And that's it. No angles, no put this on the left side. A little bit of side lighting on the back. That's all on the background. Alright, so guys, let me now show you what I can do. I can just save this as the Ministry 3. And let's load back the second one. Alright, just as we had before I started to zoom in and change the light and all that. So now I'm gonna show you how you can use layers to further control these three lights. And then I'm gonna do a separate video on an outdoor scene, just from scratch as well. Obviously without all the detail we're covering so far. That's the scene. Awesome. So when you render using layers, you simply select one of the lights at a time. So in this case, we got the front filler. I'm gonna be using, let's see, rendering enable. I'm gonna be using here, let's say, quality 100. 5,000 samples, that's more than enough. Size, this is good. I'm gonna be using denoiser on. Start with it at once and go ahead and render. So our first image is gonna be the one with the front, soft front lighting only, nothing else. All right, and again, this is a very gentle render. You don't want to, oversaturate it or overexpose it. It shouldn't, become all white or all that. Just a very soft, beautiful lighting from the front. And very important, it shouldn't reach so much of the background. And the quality looks pretty good as of now after just 30 seconds. So I think we are good. I mean, if I render this for like 5 minutes, I'm gonna get a little bit sharper image. But it just looks good enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel and save. Alright, and I'm gonna call it front filler. Next, disable the front filler, engage backlight, and render. That's it. Nothing else. So the light we have here, it doesn't, illuminate her feet so much. But that's fine. I mean, it's really up to you how and where the light hits. That's where you have no individual control. You can just go ahead and choose, hey, I want more on the feet, I want more. If you want harder shadow, like I said, you can have a smaller light source, right? And again, after just 35 seconds, the quality is just mesmerizing. So I'm just gonna click on cancel and save. So back. Then finally, I'm gonna take the background and render. Bear in mind, right now I'm not having any depth of field effect, so the background is sharp, right? We could have, rendered this with depth of field on. I'd say we do that real quick. There is one thing that happens when you have depth of field on, and that is that you limit the, how should I say, the stuff going on in the background become less of an obstruction or less of an annoyance or whatever. The background will not interfere as much with the foreground when you have it slightly blurred, right? So it's a good thing to have it blurred. Let's just engage with it. Cool. And this is a kind of a zoomed out image, like more wide angle. So we need to lower this value now to get more softer background. There we go. And it's very important when you render these 3 layers that all of them have the same camera setting, same camera position, same camera angle, and obviously same depth of field setting. Alright, let's wait for approximately 30 seconds just to get a little bit more quality here real quick. And I'm going to re-render the other layers as well. That's looking good enough. Perfect. Alright, let's cancel. I'll save. And just call it background. And I'm just going to re-render the other layers real quick. So backlight. Let's render. Great. So by rendering these separately, like one light at a time, you get individual light control. You can go in Photoshop and say, hey, I want this light to not engage with the floor. So you can remove the lighting here from the floor a little bit. I can just show you how that's done. But you still keep lighting on the floor from the other layers. So it's not like, painting on an image where everything is the same. Like, if you combine this and render, you're gonna get a render where you can, of course, go into Photoshop and modify it. But when you have these layers here that are separated, you have much more control. I'm gonna show you just how powerful this is. And the frontal here. Beautiful. All right. Yeah, she has shades on. This is back from a promo image I did way back. I was using this girl on a different set. I think she was on a beach or something, so she has her, shades on, sunglasses, right? Looks a bit funky. Okay. Alright, quality is good enough. Cancel. Let's just wait for the final canvas to be written. That's it. And cancel and save. Alright, so now front filter, right? There you go. Gonna turn off the rendering, save, and I'm gonna open up Photoshop. Let me just, you know what, I'm gonna end this video and open up Photoshop so that we try to keep this video as short as possible. Alright, so I'll see you in Photoshop next video.